Today, you can take more property price falls to the bank. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics Web Latest Post, covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, Christopher Joy from Coolabah Capital writes in Livewire that in October 2021 they projected that Aussie house prices would fall by a total of somewhere between 15 and 25% as a result of the RBA hiking cycle. That was partially based on applying a refined and upgraded version of the RBA's Saunders Tulip housing model. And they revealed in June 2022 that they arrived at similar predicted losses if they assumed a 100 basis point permanent increase in the RBA's cash rate or a temporary jump from 0.1% to 4.25%, followed by interest rate cuts. Now, as this started to play out after the RBA commenced its tightening cycle in May 2022, they forecast that the first 10 percentage points of house price losses would likely materialise by February and March 2023. And it appears that this central case is on track. CoreLogic's 5 capital city index has now lost 9.9% from its May 2022 peak through to the 2nd of February, care of the RBA's interest rate increases, with more hikes expected in February and March. We should therefore, he says, pass through the crucial 10% drawdown threshold this month. And by the end of March 2023, we would expect the Aussie capital city market to record its worst ever loss, exceeding 11% since CoreLogic began collecting data in 1980. Home values in Sydney and Melbourne are now off by almost 14 and 11% respectively from their peaks in 2022, and dwelling prices in Melbourne are not far behind. With a 9.4% correction, Canberra is faring similarly to the other East Coast cities. And while Adelaide and Perth remain the outperformers with cumulative retrenchments of only 2.3 and 1% respectively, there is evidence that the house price declines in Adelaide have been accelerating over the past few months. Over the past 3 months, the annualised pace of these house price falls have been fairly stable at somewhere between 12 and 17%, which is something that we've been keen to underscore since late last year. There is no evidence currently that the great Aussie house price crash is bottoming out or slowing, as many have been keen to suggest. And with 1 in 4 home loans switching from fixed to floating this year, which will result in their interest rates soaring from around 2% to 6%, exacerbated by additional RBA rate hikes in February and March, this housing pain is set to continue for many months to come. Across the 5 biggest capital cities, home values have been melting at a 12.3% annual pace over the last quarter. The worst performing market has been Brisbane, where prices have been plunging at a record 16.5% annual rate, followed by Sydney at 14.3% and Melbourne at 11.8%. Remarkably, when it started hiking in May last year, the RBA was forecasting that an increase in its cash rate from 0.1% to at least 2.5% would precipitate little change in house prices using that same Saunders Tulip model that they were refining back in 2021. As prices immediately started sliding quickly in May 2022, it was forced to downgrade this view to a much more pessimistic and record 11% drawdown a few months later. And Joy says that we've previously argued that the RBA would be eventually forced to once again dump this assumption and embrace the even more negative central case of somewhere between 15 and 25% losses, which seems likely to be Martin Place's modal expectation. So once again, it's worth just reflecting on the precipitous falls ahead. Now, of course, everyone's arguing, well, that's not a problem because we had this massive run-up previously. But, of course, many people bought in close to the top. Many people had very large mortgages at very low rates. And as the mechanism changes to lower prices and higher mortgage rates, more households are going to get pushed over the edge. Now, it's very interesting that many bank executives are still saying, nothing to see here, everything's fine. And, of course, they continue to report very low levels of default at the moment. Shane Elliott, for example, at ANZ, reiterated that last week. However, the marginal borrower is the one to watch, and we do know that households are hunkering down and spending less on other things to make sure that they can afford their mortgage repayments. Rents, of course, are also burning high as well. But over time, as interest rates continue to rise and as the pressure on households grows, this is going to create significantly greater pressure for more households. And you don't need all households to be in difficulty. I reckon something like 4% of households, if they get into difficulty, would be sufficient not only to tip the housing market further down, but also potentially to tip the local economy as well. So this is one to watch. I think we can definitely take more home price falls to the bank. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.